Now, 2013 might have had a bit of a rocky start, but in terms of films, at least when the year progressed, they just got better and better and better. And there were some gems that were produced this year, and I have to say that I had an extremely hard time picking out just 10 films that I loved this year. Unfortunately, though, I have not seen American Hustle, The Wolf of Wall Street, or Saving Mr. Banks, and I haven't seen every film that's released this year, so there's a reason that some films may not make my top 10 list. But there were some films that didn't make it and they just missed it. They're my honorable mentions, if you will, and they are Spring Breakers. Spring Breakers was a film that was so jarring, but in a very interesting way. I completely loved what it was trying to say with regards to our generation, and it produced one of the greatest performances that I've seen in a while, or at least this year, that of James Franco. The second honorable mention I would like to give is for Pacific Rim. Pacific Rim had some of the most amazing action set pieces that I've seen in a while. Unfortunately, there were points here and there where I thought the pacing was a little off, but still, it's a film that I feel like I really need to watch again before I can truly absorb it. It was one that was non-stop action and a great amount of fun. And the third honorable mention is for Thor: The Dark World, perhaps my favorite comic book film this year. And the thing with Thor was, just from the get-go, it never stopped. It was a continuously well-paced film, far better, in my personal opinion, than the original Thor, and all these little things here and there just made it the most fun that I've had in the theater in a long, long time. And now it is time for the top 10. Coming in at number 10 is Don John. Don John is a film that felt the most realistic to me amongst perhaps all the films on this list. It was Joseph Gordon-Levitt's directorial debut, and I have to say that he did a very, very good job in terms of performance, and especially the writing. The writing in this film is smart, it's slick, it is a great, great film, one that I will absolutely recommend. Coming in at number 9 is 12 Years a Slave. 12 Years a Slave is getting a lot of Oscar buzz, and I had to, by all means, check it out, and I'm so glad I did. The performances in this film are absolutely top-notch. Chiwetel Ejiofor and Michael Fassbender really just slay the roles, and this film was powerful. It was moving, it was hard to watch at times, but at the end of the day, from a simple perspective of flow, it flowed very well, extremely well edited, and a film that I think really will stand the test of time. And number 8 is my favorite animated film this year, Monsters University. As a big fan of Monsters Inc. and of Pixar in general, I was excited for this, and all I can say is that it had some great degrees of emotion, that it resonates with you after a point. It's such a beautiful coming-of-age story of a character that you've already loved. I'm not going to give it extra points for nostalgia, of course, but at the end of the day, it was a film that it really sunk into my heart, and I loved Monsters University. And coming in at number 7 is a film that I think is closest to perfect amongst all the films on this list, that is Prisoners. Prisoners was just such an intense experience, and a film that I absolutely believe is just getting snubbed at every award show, because everything from the cinematography to the acting to the direction of the film was all at a certain level. The ending of the film is extremely thought-provoking, and it was such a strangely well-constructed story, and I myself am shocked that it is as low as number 7. And 2013 was such a good year for movies that I just had a huge problem with my top 6. I couldn't, it took me forever to arrange these in a particular order, but finally, this is what we have. Coming in number 6 is Gravity. Gravity was perhaps one of the most riveting and powerful cinematic experiences that I've had in a very, very long time. Sitting in that theater was mesmerizing, not just from a visual perspective, but after a point when you really read into the film and understand some of the symbolism and whatnot, and how it's kind of a rebirth story of a character. I think that alone makes it deserve to be on this list, and I think it definitely earns its spot at number 6. Coming in number 5 is Captain Phillips. Captain Phillips was a film that just flowed so beautifully, and Tom Hanks gave one of his best performances. It was this idea and this simple story that was just taken, and it was presented so well, and it ultimately has an emotional impact that I never saw coming, and it blew me away, and I cannot believe that Captain Phillips is my number 5 pick. Coming in number 4 is The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug. The Desolation of Smaug was a film that I thought was far superior to the original, even though I absolutely loved the original, and everything about this film was, well, an unending amount of fun and the great sense of adventure that I think Peter Jackson always delivers, but there was so much more when you follow these characters on their journey, especially Thorin Oakenshield, who shined through the course of the film. It was certainly something I enjoyed watching, and it had some of the most mind-blowing, well, visual effects, of course, with Smaug, but action sequences as well. Coming in at number 3 is The World's End, perhaps the greatest comedy that I've seen in a long time. I don't think I've laughed this much while watching a film in a very long time, but this film is more than just about the laughs. It is extremely smartly written. I think Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg, throughout their unofficial Cornetto trilogy, have always delivered a great degree of brains when it comes to their films, and The World's End is certainly not shy of that. I think that it was one of the smartest films that I've seen in a while. That's the best way to put it, and the writing is absolutely swift, non-stop. The film has this unending amount of fun and energy, and the character of Gary King is certainly amazing to follow, and he's having a character journey throughout as well, which is something I just loved watching. Coming in at number 2 is a film that had a very split reaction, and I happened to be on the more positive side. That is Only God Forgives. It was a film that ever since it finished, I mean, I loved it throughout, but the more and more that I've thought about it, the more and more that I have loved Only God Forgives. I think everything down to even Cliff Martinez's score is top-notch, and Nicholas Winding Refn does such a great job of creating this extremely weird film almost, but he makes you love it in the best way possible, and it's not a film that is for everyone, but I'm certainly glad that it was for me. And my number 1 film of the year is Star Trek Into Darkness. When I saw this back in May, I thought to myself, now that is something special, and now that I finally made the list, I'm not even surprised to see it at number 1. I thought that Star Trek Into Darkness was just the most amazing, like, sitting in the theater was an unexplainable experience that I had, and everything about it it flowed so well. Granted, sci-fi is something I'm a big fan of, sure, but I'm not going to give it extra points just for the sake of being sci-fi. Now, if it executes it well, of course I will tend to like it more. I mean, Benedict Cumberbatch in his role was great. J.J. Abrams does a great job at this, and the film just had everything. Like, that's the best way to put it. It had some of the most eye-popping action sequences, and I mean that in an absolutely positive way. It had a great amount of wit and humor throughout the film. It had a slightly intricate story as well, but there was so much emotion throughout the film. I mean, especially between Kirk and Spock, and I think that was something that made me love this film. Star Trek Into Darkness, to me, was the best film of 2013. Thank you guys so much for watching, and all I can say is that I'm excited for 2014. There are some films that I'm already looking forward to, and I'm sure that it will produce more gems.